My dog bit me, and I think Dad sent him, Noah Caldwell whispered, his voice lost in the Kentucky dusk. In Pine Hollow, where sycamores sway over creek banks and church bells hum like cornbread suppers, a broken man returns to face a past he'd fled. Noah, scarred by loss, found a guide in Boone, an aging dog whose loyalty unearthed hidden treasures, letters, photos, a father's love. This is a tale of a bond that defies time, a son's fight to heal, and a town that gathers like kin under lantern light. From a dusty trunk to a haven of hope, can a dog's trust mend a heart torn apart? Drop your hometown in the comments below, and let's walk this heartland trail together. Subscribe for stories that stir the soul, and join us now in Pine Hollow, where love whispers through sycamore shade, calling us home under a starlit sky.
The Dog Stories 4.0.
Boone just bit me, Lila, and I swear he meant it, Noah Caldwell rasped into the phone, his voice trembling like the cicadas outside Ruth's barn. The August sun hung heavy over Pine Hollow, Kentucky in 2024, bathing the rolling hills in gold, the sycamore-lined creek murmuring beyond the tobacco barns. The air was thick with the scent of warm earth and cornbread cooling on a farmhouse sill, while distant church bells chimed a hymn, soft as a prayer. But inside the barn, where dust motes danced in slanted light, Noah stood frozen, his hazel eyes wide, staring at Boone, his 13-year-old golden retriever who'd never so much as growled at a shadow. The dog's creamy white fur, faded from years of love, bristled as he crouched over an old wooden trunk, his notched ear twitching, his brown eyes, cloudy with age but fierce, locked on Noah's hand, where a faint red mark bloomed from the nip. Noah, 38, was a stranger in his own hometown, back in Pine Hollow to settle his mother Ruth's estate after her battle with cancer ended 3 months ago. His dark brown hair, streaked with gray, peeked from under a navy baseball cap, his lean frame slouched in a plaid flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up, jeans dusted with red clay. A leather keychain with a cross pendant, Ruth's last gift, jangled in his pocket, a reminder of the faith he'd left behind when he fled to Nashville at 18, escaping his father Amos's iron hand. The barn, cluttered with tobacco crates, rusted tools, and the hum of summer, was Ruth's legacy, a task Noah tackled with a practical heart, sorting keepsakes from junk. But Boone's nip, sharp and deliberate, shattered that resolve, pulling Noah into a moment he couldn't ignore. He'd been hauling boxes to a donation pile, sweat beading on his brow, when he spotted the trunk, scarred oak, hinges rusted, tucked behind a cracked plow. It looked like garbage, its wood splintered, its purpose forgotten. Just trash, Noah muttered, reaching for it, but Boone, who'd been dozing in the hay, sprang up, his frail body suddenly taut. The dog's growl, low and primal, stopped Noah cold, his hand hovering. "Easy, boy," he said, but Boone lunged, teeth grazing his wrist. Not a bite, but a warning, clear as a preacher's sermon. "Don't touch it." Noah yanked his hand back, the trunk thudding to the dirt, and Boone settled beside it, one paw resting on the lid, his eyes daring Noah to try again. "Lila, he's guarding this thing like it's gold," Noah said, pacing the barn, his boots scuffing straw. Lila, his sister, a schoolteacher in Louisville, paused on the line, her voice steady. "Noah, Boone's never done that." "What's in it?" "I don't know," he snapped, glancing at Boone, who hadn't moved, his tail still, his notched collar jingling faintly. "Maybe check," Lila urged. Boone loved Dad. Could be something of his. Noah's throat tightened at Amos's name, the father whose strict rules, chores before play, church every Sunday, had driven him away. Amos died a decade ago, a heart attack in the fields, and Noah hadn't returned for the funeral, his anger a wall he couldn't climb. But Boone, Amos's shadow as much as Noah's, seemed to carry a piece of him still, and that nip was a call Noah couldn't ignore. He knelt by the trunk, his hand hesitant, Boone's eyes tracking every move. The dog didn't growl, but his presence was a weight, a silent vow. Noah pried the lid, hinges creaking, dust swirling like ghosts. Inside, wrapped in a quilted blanket, the one Amos kept in his truck, smelling of tobacco and pine, lay a photo album, its leather cover worn, pages yellowed. A chewed tennis ball, Boone's first toy, rolled out and Noah's breath caught, remembering Amos tossing it in the yard, Boone bounding after. At the bottom, a pocket watch, silver and heavy, ticked faintly, its face engraved with Amos's initials. A.B. Noah's fingers shook, the watch warm in his palm, as if Amos had held it moments ago. Boone whined, nudging the blanket, his cloudy eyes soft, his tail thumping once, a signal of trust. Noah sank to the hay, the album open on his lap, photos spilling memories. Him at 6, gap-toothed, riding Amos's shoulders, Boone as a pup, tongue lolling, Ruth laughing by the creek. Each image was a knife, cutting through the years he'd spent running from Pine Hollow, from Amos's shadow. "Why'd you keep this, Dad?" he whispered, his voice breaking, tears tracing his cheeks. Boone rested his muzzle on Noah's knee, a quiet comfort, as if saying, "He never stopped loving you." The church bells tolled again, their echo weaving through the barn, and Noah felt the weight of his estrangement, the guilt of leaving Ruth to face Amos's loss alone. Ellen Mayhew, Ruth's friend and Pine Hollow storekeeper, knocked on the barn door, her gray braids swinging, her brown eyes kind under a flour-dusted apron. "Brought you some cornbread, Noah," she said, her drawl warm, setting a basket on a crate. She glanced at Boone, still by the trunk, and smiled. "That dog loved your daddy. Looks like he's holding onto something special." Noah nodded, showing her the watch, his voice low. "Found this. Don't know why it's here." Ellen's eyes softened. "Amos was always tinkering, hiding things for you kids. Said you'd come back someday." Her words landed like a stone, stirring Noah's heart, the idea that Amos had planned this, even after their fights. Lila's voice crackled through the phone again, her tone gentle. "Noah, you gotta see where this leads. Boone's trying to tell you something, Dot." Noah looked at the album, a journal page slipping out, Amos's script clear. "If Boone's still your shadow, check the sycamore by the creek where we fished." His pulse quickened, the words a map, a call from beyond. He'd fled Pine Hollow to escape Amos's rules, built a life in Nashville to forget, but the trunk, Boone's nip, the watch, they were a reckoning, pulling him back to a past he couldn't outrun. The climax surged as Noah stood, the barn's shadows lengthening, the cicadas a chorus of urgency. He clutched the journal page, his hazel eyes burning, his cap pushed back. "All right, Boone," he said, his voice firm, tears drying. "Show me what Dad wanted me to find." Boone rose, his frail body steady, his notched ear lifting, his tail wagging slow but sure. He padded to the barn door, glancing back, his brown eyes a beacon in the dusk. Noah followed, the watch in his pocket, the blanket draped over his arm, the album under his elbow. The creek waited, its sycamores whispering, and Pine Hollow's bells rang out, a hymn of hope. Noah's heart pounded, not with fear, but with a truth he couldn't name, a truth Boone carried, a truth Amos left, a truth that might just bring him home. The late August dusk settled over Pine Hollow, Kentucky, in 2024, draping the sycamore-lined creek in a golden haze, its waters murmuring secrets beneath the hum of cicadas. The tobacco barns stood sentinel on the Caldwell farm, their weathered boards creaking in the cooling air, while the distant chime of church bells wove a hymn through the hills, soft as cornbread crumbling on a Sunday table. Noah Caldwell, 38, sat on the porch of his late mother Ruth's farmhouse, his dark brown hair damp under a navy baseball cap, his hazel eyes fixed on the wooden trunk he'd hauled from the barn. His plaid flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, clung to his lean frame, the cross pendant keychain in his pocket a quiet reminder of the faith he'd left behind when he fled Pine Hollow at 18. Beside him, Boone, his 13-year-old golden retriever, lay with his creamy white fur dusted in red clay, his notched ear still, his cloudy brown eyes watching the trunk as if it held the world. The trunk's contents, a quilted blanket, a photo album, a chewed tennis ball, and Amos's pocket watch, had cracked open a door to Noah's past, stirring memories of his father, whose strict hand had driven him to Nashville a lifetime ago. The journal page, tucked in the album, haunted him, its words in Amos's steady script. "If Boone's still your shadow, check the sycamore by the creek where we fished." Noah's fingers traced the page, his heart a tangle of guilt and longing. He'd run from Amos's rules, chores before play, church before dawn, only to lose him to a heart attack a decade ago, never saying goodbye. Boone's nip in the barn, a warning to save the trunk, felt like Amos's voice, calling him back to a home he'd tried to forget. Noah glanced at Boone, whose tail thumped once, slow but certain, as if urging him forward. The creek wasn't far, a short walk past the barn, its banks lush with sycamores, their leaves whispering in the breeze. Noah rose, the journal in hand, his boots crunching gravel, Boone padding beside him, his frail body swaying but determined. The air was warm, scented with damp earth and wild honeysuckle, the kind of summer evening that once meant fishing with Amos, Boone splashing after minnows. Noah's chest tightened, memories flickering like fireflies, Amos's blue eyes crinkling, his calloused hands guiding Noah's fishing pole, his laugh deep as the creek itself. Those days had faded under years of resentment, Noah's teenage rebellion a wall between them, but the journal's words were a bridge, and Boone was leading him across. At the creek, the sycamores stood tall, their roots twisting into the bank like old promises. Noah paused, the journal open, his hazel eyes scanning the trees. "Where is it, boy?" he murmured, but Boone was already moving, his nose low, sniffing intently along the roots of the largest sycamore, its trunk scarred by time. The dog pawed at the earth, a soft whine escaping, his notched collar jingling. Noah knelt, his hands digging into the cool, red clay, heart pounding as his fingers brushed metal. A tin box, rusted but intact, emerged, its lid dented, its contents waiting like a held breath. Noah's hands trembled as he pried it open, Boone's muzzle close, his cloudy eyes bright with purpose. Inside lay a Polaroid, faded but clear. Noah at 10, gap-toothed, holding a fish, Amos grinning beside him, Boone a pup at their feet, tongue lolling. A handmade fishing lure, its feathers frayed, nestled beside it, the one Amos carved during long summer evenings. Tucked beneath was a letter, folded tight, Amos's script bold, "You were my joy, Noah. Trust Boone to lead you." Noah's breath hitched, tears spilling hot down his cheeks, the Polaroid shaking in his grip. He saw Amos's hands tying the lure, heard his voice, "Hold steady, son," felt the weight of years lost to anger. Boone whined, nudging Noah's knee, his tail thumping, a quiet anchor in the storm of memory. The creek's murmur seemed to carry Amos's laugh, the church bells tolling a distant amazing grace, and Noah sank to the bank, the letter pressed to his chest. "Why'd you hide this, Dad?" he whispered, his voice raw, the sycamores silent witnesses. Boone lay beside him, his fur warm against Noah's arm, his notched ear lifting as if listening to the past. The guilt Noah carried, leaving Pine Hollow, missing Amos's funeral, letting Ruth face grief alone, felt heavier under the weight of the letter's love. He thought Amos's strictness was control, not care, but the lure, the photo, the words, they were proof of a father who never stopped believing in him. Ellen Mayhew's pickup rattled up the farm's drive as Noah returned, Boone trailing slow but steady. Her gray braids swum under a straw hat, her brown eyes kind as she set a basket of cornbread on the porch. "Heard you were pokin' around, Noah," she said, her Kentucky drawl thick, glancing at Boone, who settled by the trunk. "That dog's got your daddy's heart." Noah showed her the tin box, his voice low. "Found this by the creek. Dad wrote it." Ellen's smile was soft, her hands folding over her apron. Amos was always leaving things for you and Lila, hoping you'd find your way back. He'd sit by that creek talking about you. Her words landed like a hymn, stirring Noah's resolve, the idea that Amos had woven this trail long ago. Lila's call came as the stars emerged, her voice crackling through the phone. "Noah, that letter's Dad's way of saying he loved you. What's next?" Noah opened the journal again, his fingers steady now, finding another entry. The fairgrounds, Noah, where Boone shined. His pulse quickened, the words a beacon, the fairgrounds a memory of ribbons and laughter. He'd run from Pine Hollow to escape Amos's shadow, built walls to keep the pain out, but Boone's guidance, the tin's treasures, Ellen's warmth, they were tearing those walls down, brick by brick. The climax surged as Noah stood on the porch, the creek's whisper fading, the cicadas a chorus of urgency. He clutched the journal, his hazel eyes burning, the cross pendant heavy in his pocket. Boone rose, his frail body swaying, his notched ear lifting, his tail wagging with quiet certainty. He padded to the farmhouse door, glancing back, his brown eyes a call to follow. Noah's heart pounded, not with doubt but with a truth breaking through, that Amos's love, Boone's trust, and Pine Hollow's roots were pulling him home. He stepped forward, the tin box under his arm, the letter in his hand, the fairgrounds waiting. The church bells rang, a hymn of hope, and the sycamores swayed, their leaves whispering a promise. The trail wasn't over and Boone would lead the way. September's golden light bathed Pine Hollow, Kentucky. In 2024, the Cumberland Plateau's hills rolling under a sky streaked with clouds, their edges soft as the gospel hymns drifting from a distant church. The Caldwell farm stood quiet, its tobacco barns weathered by time, the sycamore-lined creek murmuring beyond, its banks still warm with the memory of summer. Noah Caldwell, 38, leaned against the porch railing of his late mother Ruth's farmhouse, his dark brown hair ruffled beneath a navy baseball cap, his hazel eyes tracing the horizon. His plaid flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up, clung to his lean frame, the cross pendant keychain in his pocket a faint tether to the faith he'd abandoned when he left Pine Hollow at 18. In his hands, Amos's journal lay open, its pages yellowed, the words from the creek's tin box echoing, "You were my joy, Noah. Trust Boone to lead you." Beside him, Boone, his 13-year-old golden retriever, rested on the porch boards, his creamy white fur dusted with red clay, his notched ears still, his cloudy brown eyes fixed on Noah, as if waiting for the next step. The creek's discovery, a Polaroid, a fishing lure, a letter, had cracked Noah's heart open, stirring memories of his father, Amos, whose strict rules had once driven him to Nashville, a city where he'd built a life to forget. The journal's next clue, scrawled in Amos's steady hand, pointed to the Pine Hollow Fairgrounds, where Boone shined. "Noah, find the oak by the pie stand." Noah's fingers lingered on the page, his pulse quickening. The fairgrounds, a place of cotton candy and fiddles, held a memory from 2000, when he was 14, Boone a spry pup, and Amos a towering figure cheering them on. Noah had buried that day under years of resentment, blaming Amos's discipline for their rift, but the creek's artifacts were a call he couldn't ignore, and Boone's quiet presence was a promise to follow. Noah loaded Boone into Ruth's old pickup, the dog's frail body settling on a quilted blanket. The same one from the trunk, its tobacco and pine, sent a whisper of Amos. The drive to the fairgrounds was short, the dirt roads winding past sycamores and tobacco fields, the air warm with the tang of late summer. Noah's hands gripped the wheel, his mind a tangle of doubt and hope. He'd fled Pine Hollow to escape Amos's shadow, missed his father's funeral a decade ago, let Ruth carry the grief alone. The journal, Boone's guidance, the creek's letter, they were unraveling that choice, forcing him to face the love he'd pushed away. Boone whined softly, nudging Noah's arm, his notched collar jingling, his tail thumping against the seat, a gentle nudge to keep going. The fairgrounds stood quiet, their booths shuttered, the grandstand empty, a ghost of the summers when Pine Hollow buzzed with laughter and banjo strums. Noah parked by the pie stand, its faded red paint peeling, the scent of cornbread lingering from some long-ago festival. He stepped out, Boone following slow but sure, his paws scuffing the red clay. The oak by the stand loomed large, its branches heavy, its roots knotted like old secrets. Noah opened the journal, reading the clue aloud. Find the oak, Noah. Boone didn't wait, his nose low, sniffing along the tree's base, his cloudy eyes bright with purpose. He pawed at the earth, a soft bark escaping, his notched ear lifting. Noah knelt, his hands digging into the cool clay, heart racing as his fingers brushed metal, a metal tin, rusted but sealed, buried like a vow. Noah's breath caught, his hands trembling as he pried the tin open, Boone's muzzle close, his tail thumping softly. Inside lay a blue ribbon, its edges frayed, pinned to a photo of 14-year-old Noah, gap-toothed and grinning, Boone mid-trick, tongue lolling, Amos in the background, his blue eyes crinkled with pride. A letter, folded tight, bore Amos's script. You made Boone proud, not the ribbon, son. You always did. Noah's eyes stung, tears spilling hot down his cheeks, the photo shaking in his grip. He saw Amos's hands clapping, heard a shout, "That's my boy." Felt the warmth of that day when Boone spun circles for a crowd, Noah's heart soaring. The memory was a knife, cutting through the years he'd spent blaming Amos, running from love he hadn't understood. The fairgrounds seemed to hum with that long-ago summer, the sycamores whispering, the church bells tolling a faint sweet by and by. Noah sank to the grass, the letter pressed to his chest, his voice breaking.
You were proud, Dad, he whispered, the words raw, the oak a silent witness. Boone lay beside him, his fur warm against Noah's arm, his notched ear twitching as if hearing Amos's laugh. The guilt Noah carried, leaving Pine Hollow, missing Amos's funeral, building walls around his heart, felt lighter
under the letter's truth. He thought Amos's rules were chains, but the ribbon, the photo, the words, they were love, woven into moments he'd tried to forget. Ellen Mayhew's voice broke the silence, her pickup rattling up the fairground road. Her gray braids swung under a straw hat, her brown eyes kind as she stepped out, a basket of cornbread in hand. "Saw your truck, Noah," she said, her Kentucky drawl soft, glancing at Boone, who wagged his tail. "Find something?" Noah showed her the tin, his voice low. "Dad left this, from when Boone and I won." Ellen's smile was warm, her hands folding over her apron. "Amos planned these for you, hid M to bring you home. He talked out that ribbon like it was gold." Her words stirred Noah's heart, the idea that Amos had seen him, even when he felt unseen. Lila's call came as Noah drove back, Boone dozing on the blanket, the tin on the seat. "Noah, that ribbon's Dad's way of saying he believed in you," she said, her voice crackling. "What's next?" Noah opened the journal at the farmhouse, finding another entry, the Riverside Chapel, Noah, where we sang. His pulse quickened, the words a beacon, the chapel a memory of hymns and Amos's deep voice. He'd run from Pine Hollow to escape, but Boone's guidance, the fairground's treasures, Allen's warmth, they were pulling him back, stitch by stitch. The climax surged as Noah stood in the living room, the fairground's ribbon in hand, the sycamores outside swaying in the dusk. He clutched the journal, his hazel eyes burning, the cross pendant heavy in his pocket. Boone rose, his frail body steady, his notched ear lifting, his tail wagging with quiet certainty. He padded to the door, glancing back, his brown eyes a call to follow. Noah's heart pounded, not with fear, but with a truth breaking free that Amos's love, Boone's trust, and Pine Hollow's roots were his to claim. He stepped forward, the tin under his arm, the letter in his heart, the chapel waiting. The church bells rang, a hymn of hope, and the sycamores whispered, their leaves promising the trail wasn't over and Boone would lead the way. October's amber glow-draped Pine Hollow, Kentucky. In 2024, the Cumberland Plateau's hills ablaze with crimson sycamores, their leaves drifting like embers over the slow-moving creek. The tobacco barns on the Caldwell farm stood weathered but proud, their shadows stretching long in the cooling air, while the faint chime of church bells carried a gospel hymn across the valley, soft as cornbread fresh from the oven. Noah Caldwell, 38, sat at the kitchen table of his late mother Ruth's farmhouse, his dark brown hair ruffled beneath a navy baseball cap, his hazel eyes tracing the blue ribbon from the Pine Hollow Fairgrounds. His plaid flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up, brushed against the journal page he'd found in the fairgrounds tin, its words in his father Amos's steady hand. The Riverside Chapel, Noah, where we sang. Beside him, Boone, his 13-year-old golden retriever, lay with his creamy white fur dusted in red clay, his notched ears still, his cloudy brown eyes watching Noah, a quiet call to keep moving forward. The fairgrounds ribbon, photo, and letter had stirred Noah's heart, unearthing memories of Amos's pride, a warmth he'd buried under years of resentment for his father's strict rules. The journal's new clue pointed to the chapel, a place of Sunday school hymns and Amos's deep voice, a memory Noah had fled when he left Pine Hollow at 18 for Nashville's concrete embrace. Each artifact, the creek's lure, the fairgrounds ribbon, felt like Amos reaching across time, urging Noah to face the love he'd pushed away. Boone's unwavering guidance, his tail thumping softly at the mention of the chapel, was a promise Noah couldn't ignore, pulling him deeper into a trail he hadn't chosen but couldn't abandon. Noah drove to the Riverside Chapel. Boone settled on the quilted blanket in Ruth's old pickup, the dog's frail body swaying with each turn, his notched collar jingling. The chapel stood modest, its white clapboard walls glowing under stained glass windows, the creek's murmur a soft backdrop. Noah's boots crunched gravel as he stepped out, the air thick with honeysuckle and the echo of past Sundays. He clutched the journal, his pulse quickening, memories flickering, Amos in a starched shirt, teaching Noah to sing How Great Thou Art, Boone dozing at their feet. Those days had been overshadowed by Noah's teenage defiance, his fights with Amos's rules driving a wedge between them, but the journal's words were a bridge, and Boone was crossing it. Inside the chapel, the pews were worn, the hymnals stacked neat, the light filtering through colored glass in patches of red and gold. Noah knelt by the pew where he'd sat as a boy, Boone sniffing along the floor, his nose low, his cloudy eyes bright. The dog pawed at a loose board, a soft whine escaping, his notched ear lifting. Noah's heart raced as he pried it up, revealing a wooden box, its oak polished, its edges carved with a sycamore leaf. Boone sat, his tail thumping, as Noah opened it, his hands trembling. Inside lay a hymn book, its pages marked at amazing grace, a childhood drawing, Noah's scrawl of his family under a sycamore, and a letter. Your voice lit up the choir, son. Keep singing. Noah's breath caught, tears spilling down his cheeks, the drawing shaking in his grip. He saw Amos's hands turning him pages, heard his baritone filling the chapel, felt the warmth of those Sundays before anger tore them apart. The letter was a confession, Amos's love laid bare, a father who saw Noah's light even when Noah hid it. Boone whined, nudging Noah's knee, his fur warm, his cloudy eyes soft, as if saying, he's still here. The chapel seemed to hum, the creek's murmur blending with a distant hymn, and Noah sank to the pew, the letter pressed to his chest. I didn't know, Dad, he whispered, his voice raw, the guilt of his estrangement, missing Amos's funeral, leaving Ruth easing under the weight of love he'd failed to see. Lila Bennett, Noah's sister, arrived the next day, her light brown hair tied in a bun, her green eyes bright as she stepped from her car, a tote bag slung over her cardigan. Noah, that hymn book, she said, hugging him, it's Dad's heart. They sat on the porch, Boone dozing by the trunk, as Lila read the letter, her voice trembling. Share this, Noah. People need to know Dad's love. Noah hesitated, his cap pushed back, but Lila's words lingered, a seed planted. Ellen Mayhew, Ruth's friend, stopped by with cornbread, her gray braid swinging, her brown eyes kind. "Amos fixed these pews," she said, her drawl thick. "He'd want you to keep his light burnin' dot." Ellen rallied locals for a chapel cleanup, farmers and churchgoers scrubbing pews, their laughter echoing, sharing stories of Amos's generosity, mending fences, singing in the choir. Noah posted on his anonymous blog, Creek Whisper, about the chapel find, his words tentative. Dad's voice still sings in that hymn book. Comments poured in, locals and strangers alike. Amos was a good man. One stood out, from a mill worker. "Check the old mill's wheelhouse. Amos loved it there." Noah's pulse quickened. The journal's clues now joined by Pine Hollow's whispers, a community weaving the trail tighter. The mill, a relic by the creek, was where Amos repaired gears as a young man, a place Noah had forgotten but Boone might remember. The next morning, Noah drove to the mill, its wooden frame sagging, the wheel creaking in the current. Boone led the way, his frail body slow but sure, sniffing along the wheelhouse, his notched ear twitching. He pawed at a pile of river stones, barking softly, his tail wagging. Noah dug, his hands unearthing a tin can, its lid rusted, its contents a treasure. Inside was a whittled bird, Amos's carving, its wings delicate, and a note, "You're never alone, Noah." Noah's eyes welled, the bird a memory of Amos whittling by the creek, Boone at his feet, Noah watching in awe. The note was a vow, Amos's love a light that never dimmed, even as Noah ran from it. The climax surged as Noah lit a lantern, its glow joining hundreds, the sycamores swaying under a Christmas moon. He clutched the journal, his hazel eyes shining, the cross pendant a vow. "You led me home, Boone," he whispered, his voice a hymn, tears falling but his heart soaring. Daisy wagged, her brindle fur bright. The crowd sang, their voices a chorus of forever. The haven stood, a testament to love that outlasts time, and Noah knew this was his place, his purpose, his peace. The church bells rang, the sycamores whispered, and Boone's legacy burned bright, a whisper of the heartland that would echo on. Under the largest cedar, Boone sniffed the earth, his nose low, his cloudy eyes bright with purpose. He pawed at the frost, a soft whine escaping, his notched ear lifting. Noah knelt, his hands digging into the cold clay, heart pounding as his fingers brushed glass, a sealed jar, its lid rusted, its contents a treasure. Boone sat, his tail thumping as Noah opened it, his hands trembling. Inside lay a locket Ruth's, its silver heart engraved with her initials, a family photo, Noah, Amos, Ruth, Lila, smiling by the creek, and a letter, "Build something that lasts, Noah, like our love." Noah's breath hitched, tears streaming down his cheeks, the photo shaking in his grip. He saw Ruth smile, Amos's steady hand, Lila's laugh, himself a boy, Boone a pup at their feet. The letter was a plea, Amos's vision for Noah to stay, to root himself in Pine Hollow, to carry their love forward. Boone whined, nudging Noah's knee, his fur warm, his cloudy eyes soft, as if saying, "This is home." The cemetery seemed to hum, the cedars whispering, the gospel hymn rising, and Noah sank to the ground, the letter pressed to his chest. "You wanted me here. Dad," he whispered, his voice raw, the guilt of his estrangement, running from Amos, missing Ruth's final years, dissolving in the light of love he'd failed to see. Ellen Mayhew's voice broke the silence, her pickup rattling up the hill, her gray braids swinging under a straw hat, her brown eyes kind as she stepped out, a thermos of coffee in hand. "Knew you'd be here, Noah," she said, her Kentucky drawl warm, glancing at Boone, who wagged his tail. "Find something?" Noah showed her the jar, his voice low. "Dad's last letter. He wanted me to stay." Ellen's smile was radiant, her hands folding over her apron. "Amos always said you'd come back. Let's build something for him." She proposed the Pine Hollow Memory Haven, a community center to preserve stories and artifacts, inspired by Amos's legacy and Noah's blog, Creek Whisperer, now viral with #HeartlandWhispers. The local historical society, moved by the story's reach, offered funding, their letter citing Amos's impact on Pine Hollow. Noah hesitated, his cap pushed back, fear flickering in his hazel eyes. "I'm not enough, Ellen," he said, his voice trembling, the weight of his divorce and estrangement heavy. Lila, arriving from Louisville, her cardigan fluttering, hugged him tight. "Dad believed in you, Noah." "So do we." Her words, soft as a hymn, stirred his resolve. Locals gathered, farmers with lumber, churchgoers with tools, volunteering to lay the Haven's foundation, their laughter echoing like a summer fair. Noah's blog post about the jar drew thousands of comments. "Build it, Noah." Amos's love lives on. The community's faith, Boone's trust, and Amos's letter were a call he couldn't refuse. That afternoon, Noah found Daisy, a brindle stray dog, shivering by the cemetery gate, her amber eyes wary. He offered her cornbread, her tail twitching, and Boone nudged her gently, his notched ear lifting, as if welcoming her to the journey. Noah took her in, training her with Boone's guidance, her trust a mirror to his own healing. The act felt like Amos's wish, building something lasting, starting with a dog who needed a home. Daisy's presence, Boone's wagging tail, and the community's hammers ringing out were signs Noah was ready. The climax surged as Noah stood by the creek at dusk, the cemetery's jar in hand, the sycamores swaying under a November moon. He clutched the locket, his hazel eyes burning, the cross pendant heavy in his pocket. Boone sat beside him, his creamy fur glowing, his cloudy eyes steady, his tail thumping a quiet rhythm. Noah's heart pounded, not with doubt but with a truth breaking free that Amos's love, Boone's trust, and Pine Hollow's embrace were his to carry forward. He opened the journal, finding no new clue, only a blank page, as if Amos were saying, "It's yours now." The Haven's foundation waited, the community's faith a beacon, Daisy's trust a new beginning. Noah stepped forward, the jar in his hands, the letter in his heart, the future calling. The church bells rang, a hymn of hope, and the sycamores whispered, their leaves promising the trail was his to build, with Boone's love leading the way. December's first frost settled over Pine Hollow, Kentucky in 2024, cloaking the Cumberland Plateau's hills in a silver sheen, the sycamore-lined creek glistening like a ribbon under the pale morning light. The Caldwell farm stood hushed, its tobacco barns dusted with ice, their weathered boards echoing the hum of a distant gospel choir practicing for the season's end. Noah Caldwell, 38, stood on the farmhouse porch, his dark brown hair tucked under a navy baseball cap, his hazel eyes tracing the horizon where the Memory Haven's foundation now rose, a skeleton of beams under the sycamores. His plaid flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up despite the chill, brushed against the journal page from the cemetery's jar, Amos's words a guiding star, build something that lasts, Noah, like our love. Beside him, Boone, his 13-year-old golden retriever, lay with his creamy white fur glowing faintly, his notched ear still, his cloudy brown eyes watching Noah, a quiet testament to their shared trail. The cemetery's locket, photo, and letter had sealed Noah's resolve, binding him to Pine Hollow, the home he'd fled at 18 to escape his father Amos's strict hand. Each artifact, the creek's lore, the fairground's ribbon, the chapel's hymn book, the mill's bird, the cemetery's jar had been a thread, weaving Noah back to his roots, healing the guilt of his estrangement. The Pine Hollow Memory Haven, proposed by Ellen Mayhew and fueled by the viral reach of Noah's blog, Creek Whisperer, was Amos's legacy made real, a place to preserve stories and artifacts for the town. Boone's frail but steady presence, his tail thumping at the sight of the Haven's beams, and Daisy, the brindle stray Noah had adopted, wagging beside him, were signs of a journey nearing its peak, a call to build something lasting. The Havens Foundation had taken shape over weeks, locals hammering beams under sycamore shade, their laughter mingling with the creek's murmur. Noah walked the site daily, his boots crunching frost, Boone and Daisy trailing, the dogs' breaths fogging in the chill. Farmers brought lumber, churchgoers hauled nails, and kids painted signs, Pine Hollow Memory Haven, in bright chalk, their giggles a hymn of hope. Ellen, her gray braids swinging under a wool cap, coordinated volunteers, her brown eyes bright as she sketched plans for a barn workshop and a journal room. Lila Bennett, Noah's sister, visited often, her cardigan fluttering, her green eyes shining as she sorted Amos's journals, her voice soft. "This is Dad's dream, Noah." The blog, now a beacon with hashtag Heartland Whispers trending, drew comments from across Kentucky. "Your story's ours, Noah. Amos would be proud." Noah posted nightly, his words raw. "Boone showed me home is love, not a place. The Haven's rising like Dad's heart." The comments poured in, strangers sharing their own memory trails, locals pledging cornbread and quilts for the Haven's opening. The Historical Society's funding, spurred by the blog's reach, poured concrete for the foundation, their letter praising Amos's legacy as Pine Hollow's quiet hero. Noah's heart swelled, but a shadow lingered Boone's frailty, his steps slower, his breaths heavier, a reminder that the dog who'd led him here was nearing his own dusk. Daisy, her amber eyes bright, stayed close to Boone, her brindle for brushing his, as if learning his courage. The winter festival, set for mid-December, was Pine Hollow's answer to the Haven's rise, a celebration of Amos's love and Noah's return. The town transformed the site, stringing lanterns on sycamores, their glow dancing like fireflies, tables groaning with cornbread, pecan pie, and sweet tea. A gospel choir from the Riverside Chapel rehearsed "Sweet By and By," their voices soaring, while fiddlers tuned banjos, the air thick with warmth and anticipation. Noah, his cap swapped for a green scarf Lila lent him, walked the grounds, Boone and Daisy at his heels, the dog's collars jingling, Boone's red bandana bright against his fading fur. Ellen bustled about, her apron dusted with flour, directing volunteers, her drawl a steady rhythm. "More lanterns, folks. Let's light this place up." The winter festival had lit Pine Hollow with hope, its lanterns and gospel choir a celebration of the Memory Havens Foundation, a legacy born from Amos's love and Noah's blog, Creek Whisperer. Now a beacon with hashtag Heartland Whispers trending across the South. Each artifact, the creek's lure, the fairground's ribbon, the chapel's hymn book, the mill's bird, the cemetery's locket, had woven Noah back to his roots, healing the wounds of his estrangement from Amos, his father, and Ruth, his mother. Boone's frail but unwavering guidance, Daisy's budding trust, and the community's hammers had built more than a haven. They'd built a home. Yet Boone's steps had slowed, his breaths heavier, his tail's thump fainter, a shadow Noah couldn't ignore, a truth that this trail was nearing its end. That evening, Boone stirred, his notched collar jingling as he rose, his cloudy eyes fixed on the hill beyond the farm, where sycamores framed a view of Pine Hollow's twinkling lights. Noah's heart tightened, sensing Boone's call, a pull as clear as the journal's clues. He draped the quilted blanket, Amos's, from the trunk over his shoulders, grabbed a lantern and followed, Daisy trotting beside, her brindle fur glinting, her amber eyes curious. The hill was a place of memory, where Noah, as a boy, watched sunsets with Amos and Boone, the creek sparkling below, Amos's stories of faith and family filling the air. Noah's boots crunched frost, the air sharp with pine and wood smoke, the church bells tolling a faint silent night, a hymn of peace guiding their path. At the hill's crest, Boone paused, his frail body swaying, his notched ear lifting as if hearing Amos's voice. He sank to the frost, his breath slow, his cloudy eyes meeting Noah's, soft but certain. Noah knelt, his hands trembling, the lantern casting a golden glow over Boone's fur. "You brought me here. boy," he whispered, his voice breaking, tears tracing his cheeks. Boone whined softly, nudging Noah's hand, his tail thumping once, a final vow. The stars above seemed to pulse, the creeks murmur a lullaby, and Boone's eyes closed, his breathing fading, his spirit slipping into the night, peaceful under the sycamore's watch. Noah held him, the blanket warm, Daisy lying close, her amber eyes mournful, as if sensing the weight of farewell. The silence was sacred, the church bells still, the frost a gentle shroud. Noah buried Boone there, under the sycamores, his hands digging into the cold earth, the lantern flickering. He placed the tin whistle from the chapel, the locket from the cemetery, a family photo, and a letter he wrote, "You led me home." Boone beside the dog, their trust a treasure eternal. Daisy sat vigil, her brindle for brushing Noah's arm, her presence a new thread in the haven's weave. Noah smoothed the earth, his tears falling, his heart full not of loss, but of love that would never fade. The memory haven glowed that night, its foundation solid, a barn rising for workshops, a sycamore-shaded room ready for Amos's journals. Noah returned for a candlelit vigil, Pine Hollow gathering under lantern-lit sycamores, their faces bright with faith. Ella Mayhew, her gray braid tucked under a wool cap, lit the first candle, her brown eyes shining. Lila, her cardigan wrapped tight, held Noah's hand, her green eyes wet, her locket glinting. Farmers in flannel, church ladies with cornbread, kids with chalk signs, Boone's Haven, stood shoulder to shoulder, their breath fogging in the chill. Noah stepped forward, Daisy at his side, her tail wagging, Amos's journal in his hands. "Boone showed us love never fades," Noah said, his voice steady, cracking only once, his hazel eyes alight. "He led me back to Dad, to Mom, to you. This haven's his, ours, a place to hold every story." The crowd hushed, then sang Amazing Grace, their voices a river, lanterns swaying like stars, the sycamores whispering. Ellen raised a thermos, Lila hugged Noah, locals wept, their cheers a thunder that shook the hills. Daisy barked, her amber eyes bright, a new guardian of the haven's light. The church bells tolled, a hymn of hope, sealing Pine Hollow's promise to carry Boone's legacy forward. Noah posted a final Creek Whisperer entry that night. "Boone's gone, but his love built this haven. We're home." Comments flooded, "Amen, Noah. Boone's a hero." From locals to strangers, their stories weaving a tapestry of memory. A YouTube video, narrated in a warm Kentucky drawl, captured the journey, trunk to hill, grief to haven, ending. Share if love guides you home. Comment, "Amen," and subscribe. It soared, #Heartland Whispers trending globally, comments echoing, "Amen, Pine Hollow." Noah stood under the sycamores, Daisy's fur warm against his leg, the haven's beams rising, Amos's journals waiting. His heart pounded, full of Boone's trust, Amos's love, Pine Hollow's embrace, a light that would never dim. The climax surged as Noah lit a lantern, its glow joining hundreds, the sycamores swaying under a Christmas moon. He clutched the journal, his hazel eyes shining, the cross pendant a vow. "You led me home." "Boone," he whispered, his voice a hymn, tears falling but his heart soaring. Daisy wagged, her brindle fur bright. The crowd sang, their voices a chorus of forever. The haven stood, a testament to love that outlasts time, and Noah knew this was his place, his purpose, his peace. The church bells rang, the sycamores whispered, and Boone's legacy burned bright, a whisper of the heartland that would echo on.